You've sat in that salon chair, pointed to a picture, and walked out feeling like something went wrong, again. You are not alone. And it is not your fault. The cuts being sold to women your age are often the exact cuts stealing 10 years of vitality, right off your face. Let me be the friend who finally tells you the truth. I research worst style and beauty mistakes and youth-boosting fixes for mature women so you get simple, proven transformations that work instantly. Today we're perfecting 5 haircuts that instantly make you look younger at 65 plus. And by part 3, you'll want to pause and look in the mirror. I mean it. We're covering 5 specific cuts, why each one works with mature bone structure, and the one swap in part 2 that women tell me felt like turning back a clock. Subscribe so you don't miss it. And the very first cut? It is the one most stylists never even suggest. Let's go. 1. The soft face framing layered bob. Have you ever noticed that some women in their 60s look completely effortless, like their hair is doing exactly what it should, while yours feels like it is working against you every single morning? That feeling is real. And it usually comes down to one thing: the wrong cut for your face's current structure. Here is what nobody tells you. After 65, the face loses volume in certain areas: the temples, the mid-cheek, the jawline, and a blunt one-length cut magnifies every single one of those changes. It pulls everything down. It creates visual weight exactly where you do not want it. The soft face framing layered bob corrects all of that. This is not the stiff, helmet-shaped bob your mother wore. This version has gentle internal layers that lift from the crown, movement through the mid-length, and longer pieces that graze forward along the cheekbones. Those forward grazing pieces are everything. They draw the eye upward, create the illusion of lifted cheekbones, and soften the jawline without hiding your elegant bone structure. Honestly, the moment I first saw this cut on a client in her late 60s, I thought, why is this not the standard recommendation for every woman this age? It was like watching someone's face lift in real time without a single procedure. Why it ages you without layers. A blunt single-length bob creates a flat curtain of hair that drags the eye downward along the jaw, which emphasizes any natural softening of the lower face. The weight sits at the widest point of your face shape and adds years visually. What to swap? If you are currently wearing a blunt chin-length bob with no texture and no movement, ask your stylist specifically for internal layers starting at the occipital bone, with face framing pieces cut at a forward angle toward the cheekbone. That single instruction changes the entire outcome. The key to maintaining this cut is a trim every 6 to 8 weeks. Not because the length needs it, but because the layers need refreshing to keep their lift. Layers that grow out lose their shape, and the whole structure collapses. This is one of those cuts that rewards maintenance. Your bone structure was always this beautiful. This cut just finally lets it show. And if you think the layered bob is the only cut that does this kind of lifting, wait until you see part 2, because the next haircut does something even more specific to the eye area that most women have never considered. 2. The curtain bang textured lob. Bold statement, and I mean it sincerely. The area around your eyes is the single most powerful zone on your face for communicating age, and most haircuts completely ignore it. The textured lob with curtain bangs is built to address exactly that zone. A lob is a long bob, sitting anywhere from the collarbone to just below the jaw, with deliberate internal texture throughout. Add curtain bangs, and you have a cut that frames the eye area, softens the forehead, and draws attention straight to the most expressive part of your face. It is architectural. And it works. Here is the key insight most stylists miss. Curtain bangs parted gently at the center and swept softly to each side create a visual V shape pointing directly toward your eyes. That V draws attention upward and inward toward your eyes instead of downward toward the jaw. For women at 65 and beyond, this redirection of the eye is one of the most effective non-surgical tools available. Full stop. This one is everything. Why this ages you without the right bang. A heavy, straight-across fringe cut too low sits like a visor, covering the forehead and pushing the eye area into shadow. It reads as a disguise, not a style. And a lob with no texture sits flat and heavy, pulling everything downward, the exact opposite of what mature hair needs. What to swap? If you are currently wearing a heavy blunt fringe, ask your stylist to open it up into a soft curtain bang, removing bulk from the center, and allowing the ends to feather outward at each temple. If you have been wearing a lob with no texture, request point cut ends throughout the length, not thinning, which removes volume you cannot spare, but point cutting, which creates movement without sacrificing density. The maintenance ritual for this cut centers on one thing: keeping the curtain bang at the right length. Too short and it loses its sweep. Too long and it starts to close over the forehead again. A 6-week trim for the bang area specifically keeps the whole look working. If this is the first time you have heard the term point cutting in the context of mature hair, you have been in the wrong salon. And what is coming in part 3 is the cut that women who thought they had to go short have been waiting their whole lives to discover. 3. The tapered silver pixie with soft crown volume. Let's talk about the moment you told yourself you were not a pixie person. I want to gently challenge that. Because the pixie cut you were shown, the blunt, close-cropped version that sits flat to the skull, that is not what we are discussing here. The tapered silver pixie with soft crown volume is an entirely different animal. It is longer through the top and crown, tapering softly at the sides and nape, with texture and movement built into the top section so it does not lie flat. This creates visible height and dimension right where mature women need it most, at the crown, and removes unnecessary weight from the sides where roundness can make the face appear heavier than it is. Here is the truth that changes everything. Flat crown and heavy sides are the two visual signatures of an aging face. Any cut that addresses both simultaneously does more for your apparent age than almost anything else available. This pixie does both. Honestly, I have watched women walk out of salons with this cut and stand straighter. Not because of the cut itself, but because of how they feel in it. Your natural elegance responds to a cut that honors the structure underneath. Why the flat pixie ages you. When a pixie cut has no crown volume and no texture, it sits like a cap over the skull and draws attention to the shape of the head rather than the face. If the shape is not symmetrical, and very few are, that becomes the first thing people see. What to swap? If you are currently wearing a close-cropped pixie with no texture and a blunt neckline, ask for length kept at 1 to 2 inches through the top, a soft undercut or tapering at the nape, and point cutting through the crown section for lift. That version is a completely different statement. Maintaining this cut is genuinely easy. A neck and side taper touch-up every 4 weeks keeps it clean, and the crown section can go 6 to 8 weeks between full trims. This is actually one of the lower maintenance cuts for women who do not want to spend every morning styling. You did not need to go shorter. You needed to go smarter. And in part 4, we are covering the one longer style that challenges every rule you have been told about hair length at 65, and why breaking that rule might be the best thing you ever do for your face. 4. The long layered wave with lifted root volume. You have been told, probably more than once, that long hair after a certain age is a mistake, that it pulls the face down, that it reads as trying too hard. I need you to hear this clearly. That advice is wrong. Specifically wrong. And I can tell you exactly why. The problem was never the length. The problem was long hair with no internal structure. No layers, no root lift, no movement, which does pull everything downward. The fix is not cutting it off. The fix is rebuilding the architecture. The long layered wave with lifted root volume is the cut and technique combination that proves long hair at 65 can look absolutely stunning. The layers begin at the crown and cascade through the length at varying intervals. Not in even dated shag-style rows, but in strategic placement that creates movement and removes the heavy, dragging appearance of one-length long hair. This is the one that made a woman in my community message me saying she had not felt like herself in 15 years, and this cut brought her back. That is not a small thing. Why long hair with no layers ages you? Without internal layers and root lift, long hair creates a visual downward arrow. The weight of the length pulls on the scalp, flattens the crown, and creates a narrow top with heavy sides. Exactly the proportions that communicate age. It also emphasizes fine texture because flat, one-length hair has nowhere to hide thinning spots. What to swap? If you are currently wearing long hair with a blunt hemline and no layers, ask for face framing layers beginning at the cheekbone, long internal layers through the body of the hair removed with a razor or point cut technique, and a root lift blow-dry technique that adds height at the crown before the wave is set. The difference is immediate and dramatic. The one maintenance non-negotiable for this cut is conditioning. Long layered hair on mature women needs a weekly deep conditioning treatment, not to soften the hair, but to keep the wave pattern consistent and defined. Dry, porous hair loses its wave and the layers fall flat, which defeats the entire structure. Long hair is not the enemy of age. Shapeless hair is. And in part 5, we are finishing with the one cut that most women assume is only for younger faces, and discovering why it might actually be the most flattering option specifically for the mature face shape. 5. The rounded bob with nape taper. Question for you. When was the last time you wore something that made you feel genuinely polished before you even got dressed? Your hair has that power. And this final cut might be the one that gives it back to you. The rounded bob with nape taper is exactly what the name says. A bob cut with a rounded silhouette at the ends rather than a blunt or straight hemline. Paired with a clean taper at the nape that removes bulk and creates a subtle lift at the back of the head. It sounds simple. The effect is not simple at all. For women at 65 and beyond, the shape of the back of the head matters enormously, and almost no one talks about it. When the nape is heavy and untapered, the entire head reads as flat and wide from behind. A clean taper creates visible length in the neck, which lifts the entire silhouette of the head and makes the jaw and chin area appear more defined when viewed from the front. Honestly, this is one of those cuts where the back view is almost more important than the front. And most women never even look at their own back profile. Once you see it done right, you will not stop thinking about it. Why the untapered nape ages you. When the nape is heavy and the bob ends in a blunt straight line, the head appears wide and flat from behind, and the neck looks shorter than it actually is. A shorter-looking neck is one of the most overlooked contributors to appearing older than you are. What to swap? If your current bob has a heavy, unthinned nape and a perfectly straight hemline, ask your stylist specifically for a graduated nape taper. Not a high undercut, not a shaved nape, but a gradual taper that begins about an inch above the hairline and feathers upward. Combined with a rounded hemline where the ends curve gently rather than cutting straight across. Maintaining this cut requires attention to the nape every 4 to 5 weeks. The taper grows out faster than the rest of the bob. And when it does, the lifted neck effect disappears and the bulk returns. This is the one trim that cannot wait for the 6-week mark. You have been wearing the wrong bob for years without knowing it. One conversation with your stylist using the exact words from this video changes that, starting at your very next appointment. You just learned 5 specific cuts. The soft layered bob, the curtain bang lob, the tapered silver pixie, the long layered wave, and the rounded tapered bob, that work with the way your face has evolved rather than against it. That is knowledge most women spend years trying to find on their own. You didn't just watch a video. You changed the conversation you are going to have in that salon chair. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell me, which of these 5 cuts are you most excited to try? Or better yet, which one do you already have and wish someone had told you about sooner? Next time, we are covering the exact color mistakes that make silver and gray hair look dull instead of luminous. And the fixes are simpler than you think. Like this video, subscribe to Timeless Wisdom Path, and I'll see you in the next one.